coming up very shortly on the show, delighted to say John Caudwell, a sometime regular guest of the show, business leader and philanthropist, and former founder of Phones for You, but these days much more interested in trying to balance up society by making sure that people who he says are currently excluded are not forgotten about when the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, is dishing out the money. If you're going to level up, you've got to try and treat everybody the same. That's a point that John's going to talk to me about. John also has the Caudwell Pandemic Recovery issue to talk about, because that, again, is a way of trying to get us back to normal. People like Mr. Caudwell, in my view, have a huge voice in this country. They're very, very successful businessmen. They're entrepreneurs. And if you're a successful businessman and an entrepreneur, you've got a skill that's going to be badly needed when we try putting society back together again and living as we always have done in the past, like a free country. Right, delighted to say John's with me now. John, welcome to Talk Radio. Thank you very much indeed for coming on to give me your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure.
Well, it's very kind of you indeed. John, first of all, I want to talk about Excluded UK, those who are left out. You're very, very serious about this, aren't you? And it's something that you've devoted an awful lot of time to. Are you having success?
Well, success insofar as they are listening. Are they doing anything? Well, no evidence of that yet. And I find it very, very puzzling because... Yeah. There are glaring exclusions. We can't say it's the whole of the 3 million. We don't know how many people are really suffering badly out of that 3 million.
Yeah.
We do know that 3 million excluded, but some of those people may be able to sustain themselves, but some definitely can't. And I don't really understand this injustice. I mean, for an example, and then this is really quite a good example.
Yes.
If you're an employee and you get furloughed, okay, they cap you at £2,500, but they don't stop you having anything.
Yeah.
If you're self-employed and you earn over 50,000, I think it might be 55.
Yes.
They say you're not entitled to anything.
Yeah.
Now, where's the fairness in that? Why have a different rule for self-employed and have that capping whereby they can't even have any support whatsoever? So, you know, and there are, without doubt, tens of thousands, if not millions, that are really, really suffering as a consequence of this. And it just has to be put right to have a just and fair society.
I think it's nearer millions and tens of thousands. I agree with you. And the issue here about the excluded is that they're the people who are being most unfairly punished. You've just said about people who are furloughed. Now, a lot of those will be in the private sector, but an awful lot of them are also in the public sector, and they've got jobs for life. They've got gilt-edged jobs. They get 80% of their salary through their employer, if you see what I mean, so they don't lose out at all. Their employer, even if the employer's the government, gets recompensed for it. They've got a cushy life. But we all know that people like yourself, who started on the premise that if I don't get out of bed in the morning, I don't earn any money, they're the people who are suffering. I can't believe that the government are so blind to this.
No, I agree. I agree with you, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't understand it at all. And, you know, having argued the point with Rishi, he is convinced that he's doing enough for people. But
right.
I just don't get it at all, because if it's crystal clear to me that there's people really suffering injustices,
yes,
why is it not clear to the government? And, you know, they really need to put it right. Because we don't know how much longer this pandemic's going to go on. And every month that goes by, these excluded people are suffering more and more and more hardship. And more and more bankruptcies, more and more suicides, more and more devastated families. And Rishi really does need to look at this. And I have written to the Prime Minister again about it.
Right.
And I'm writing to Rishi about it in the hopes that they'll see it. But up to yet, they just seem to be resilient in the view that they've done a lot to help. Well, they have done a lot to help people, but they're not recognising that there is a category of person that are being very, very hard done to and neglected terribly. Yeah. And the irony is, you know, Mike, is that most of these people are probably Conservative voters. Probably newly
Conservative voters, you know, probably red wall voters. Now, John, we all admire you for doing this. Keep the pressure on. That's your role in life as a philanthropist. But, of course, you are also a very successful businessman. So may I put to you, John, that in addition to your philanthropy, which everybody welcomes, you have an obligation to get back into business and start being the great entrepreneur you are, because when we come out of all this, we're going to have to create new jobs. We're going to have to generate more wealth. And I was delighted to read a piece this week which says, productivity boost raises hopes that firms are rising to challenge. Productivity increased at its fastest pace in 15 years in the 3 months to September as the economy bounced back from the first lockdown, according to official figures. And what it's saying is that people are seeing opportunities, as I'm sure you will as a successful businessman, that when we come out of lockdown, there's going to be room there for new people to start going. You could be amongst them, John, with new ventures.
Well, you're absolutely right on the point that efficiency increases in the time of crisis, because there's an old saying which is absolutely true, which is necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
And people are reinventing themselves, businesses are reinventing themselves. But of course, as we've just discussed, there's a lot of victims with that reinventing. And it's those victims that, to have a fair society, need helping out. As far as me getting back into business, I'm very heavily into property development anyway at the moment.
Right.
But, my future is absolutely philanthropic work, charity work, to try and help people that are ill and people that can't look after themselves, especially children. So I don't see myself getting heavily back into an operating business again, although I'm very heavily into marine propulsion systems and property development.
Sure. And listen, you've got to be a successful businessman to be able to be a philanthropist, haven't you? Like, a country's got to be economically successful to run a great national health service. So I understand all of that. And, of course, your motives are magnificent. And you've hit on a point, John, and you're ahead of me here. This report says, however, the pandemic has forced small businesses to improve management practices and invest in technology, raising hopes that the crisis may help fix Britain's long-term productivity problem. Could it be, in your opinion, John, that one result of the lockdown might be that the whole economy of the UK has gone through a correctional process, and bits of it that don't work, like perhaps the high street, like perhaps overstaffed, nationalised industries and all that, will be shaken down?
No, you're absolutely right, Mike. That's exactly what's happening. This point of a crisis causing this new innovative approach to business is absolutely there.
Right.
And we will be much more effective and productive at the end of it. But unfortunately, at the same time, we'll have 3 million unemployed people who are devastated by this. And of course, a lot of these people, these smaller businesses, will have gone under. And that's why I want Rishi to help everybody that they possibly can, whilst, of course, this correcting process is going on. You mentioned the high street, and that's a devastating situation.
Oh, it is.
There was always going to be an evolution in the high street, away from high street and in favour of online. That was always going to happen for the last 20 years and was happening. But what's happened with COVID is an absolute revolution, which is taking people unawares and giving them no time to adapt. So there are going to be huge victims on the high street, unfortunately. But as you sort of suggest, it's a correcting action. It's just happened in a very brutal way.
Absolutely. What did you make this week of, in the last 48 hours, all of a sudden, the deadline now for, lockdown ending has gone from sort of, middle of February, where we'd have a reassessment, end of February. Now people are talking about May and June. It just gets, getting pushed further and further back. That's really bad for mental health of anybody.
Yeah, it is. And there does seem to be a bit of an imbalance there. And I don't really understand that, because we'll have had 5 million people with COVID.
Absolutely.
We'll have 15 million people vaccinated. That's 1/3 of the population, and the vulnerable 1/3. And I would think that by the time we get to 1/3 of the population who are then immune or relatively immune to the problems of COVID, that the rest of us could fight it out and the economy could get back to normal, and the rest of us will have a reasonably good chance of not being taken too ill by it. So, and you've only got to look at the statistics to know that's correct. So I don't really understand, unless it's the government trying to frighten people into taking this lockdown more seriously. Because as we all see, there's a negligent element of society that don't take it seriously at all and are definitely responsible for helping spread the virus. And maybe it's to frighten people into greater action. I don't know. But I would be amazed if these level of restrictions carry on past the end of February. if they do, I think there's something very wrong.
No, I totally agree with you there. And my first guest on the show today was John Craig, Chief Political Correspondent on Sky. And I put it to John, is this Project Fear from the government? Are they trying to tell us who could be as far away as July now, so that when we do start opening things up in March, towards the end of March, the government look like heroes?
Yeah, well, who knows whether that's a political motive or not. I mean, politicians will be politicians, won't they?
Yeah.
So that's quite possibly one of the combined reasons. But I do think a definite reason is to try and frighten people into being more diligent about the current lockdown.
Yeah.
And but of course they will look then like heroes if they're talking people into thinking it's going to be April, May, and then suddenly it's February, March. Then they'll look as though they've done a great job. So, but I think, in fairness, I think they're doing a great job of the vaccination.
Oh, absolutely.
That program is world class, and another element of why we should be incredibly proud to be British.
Yeah,
we're way ahead of the game.
I totally agree, John. I live very near Epsom Racecourse, and I see those people going in every day. They're only in there 45 seconds, they're out again, and they are turning them over magnificently. Look at the league table this morning. I think France have still only vaccinated about 1.8% of their population, compared to nearly 8 and 9% for what we're doing. We're doing a magnificent job.
We are doing a magnificent job, and there's a possibility there that as a result, our cases drop like a stone while other countries are still rising.
Yes.
But the other thing I'm extremely proud of, is that AstraZeneca and Oxford have done this on a philanthropic nature. We're 1/7 of the cost of other vaccines like the Pfizer one, which of course has also got horrible operational difficulties. And I just hope that the AstraZeneca vaccine takes over the world and gives these very, very low-cost vaccinations all over, that they can get the volume up, and that people like Pfizer and the ones that are making profits out of these suffer as a consequence.
I totally agree with you. John, just before you go, tell our millions of listeners what website or where can they go to find out about your philanthropic work?
Oh, well, just on my own website, which is john.caudwell. They can find me quite easily on that, and they can find out about Caudwell Children easily, Caudwell Line Co. So all my charitable works are very, very easily referenced on the website just by searching my name.
Brilliant. That's great. OK, John. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And I so appreciate your expertise at these very difficult times. We need somebody like yourself who's a proven winner and who knows how to get things done to try and stimulate the rest of us and give us inspiration. And John, you certainly do that. OK, folks, that's Mr. John Caudwell, business leader and philanthropist. And he says he's more of a philanthropist these days than he is a businessman, but of course he's made an awful lot of money to be able to become a philanthropist, and good luck to him.